see this going to 3-0. But do you know what? Enough chatter here, Flea. Let's get on with the first match of the day between COOLLERZ and Spart1e to see who's going to be able to secure their spot in the Quake Pro League, or who's going to have to battle it out in the relegation phase in just a few weeks' time. We are going to be kicking off from Spart1e's POV.
Indeed, Spart1e will be taking and claiming the mega side of the map, securing that LG and now eyeing the railgun, but he knows he's got to be careful, because COOLLERZ now has some excellent weaponry to take this fight. There we go, COOLLERZ patiently waiting on that railgun. Doesn't manage to deny it, but gets a little bit of exit damage nevertheless. And now both players have got the full arsenal, but it is Spart1e who's got the better position. He's controlling both the center area of the map, as well as the mega behind him. Don't think he's got any idea of when heavy spawns. Both players are actually denying the item pickup, and I think that was actually really clever from Spart1e. Spart1e dropped down to make sure that COOLLERZ heard the bounce pad. He's tricking his opponent into thinking that mega has already been taken, but he hasn't gone for it at all. Only now does he pick it up, and in doing so he leaves an 8-second gap in the pickups that could give him the edge if he takes COOLLERZ by surprise now.
Also, COOLLERZ hasn't got any info on where Spart1e could be, so he's just trying to bait out his position. He's found it now, hits that first rail, but Spart1e hits no one of his own. He's only on 79 HP, waiting for him to come through. Will he be able to take him out in time? He's literally so weak, 35 HP. He hasn't been able to clean him up as of yet, but does get away with the heavy as he finds COOLLERZ once again. As COOLLERZ trying to back away for dear life. Only 90 seconds has passed, but it feels like a lot more than that, considering the mind games both these players are actually playing at the moment. Good rocket there, does pick up the mega, but COOLLERZ still takes him down and gets that early lead.
Spart1e fumbling in the weapons and the movement a fair bit right there. Everything was going in his favor, but then he just hesitated, it felt like. Got the wrong weapon out, pushed into one of COOLLERZ's rockets, even though everything was going his way. Now one more shot should be able to clean up his opponent. COOLLERZ wisely leaves this fight for what it is going to drop mega as well. This is looking really good for Spart1e. We know that railgun is one of his better weapons, and he is now back in control. He's got the item timing for both, which I think COOLLERZ doesn't have, and he's got the stack advantage. If he can catch the Russian prince by surprise, then this should be a frag. Now he knows COOLLERZ screamingly low. Spart1e will clean it up with a nice little cheeky rail from above. All tied up 1-1.
That's a beautiful rail there. Spart1e going to try and clean him up once again. COOLLERZ so weak. Does take him down, left on 59 HP, and that's going to give Spart1e the lead the first time in this matchup. Does pick up the mega. We'll find COOLLERZ underneath in the murder hole. Does get the first rail on though. Takes a tiny bit of damage there going across bottom mid, but it looks like COOLLERZ does have that positional advantage on the heavy, but then it depends on how Spart1e's going to approach this, but tanks another rail, and Spart1e's so weak, and COOLLERZ can easily use that mobility to come and go on the aggressive, and does clean him up. Beautiful stuff there from COOLLERZ. And now, would he go for the trade for once again? He's going to go for it, but Spart1e does win that last engagement, only on 8 HP, as he picks up the next mega.
We started off with an extremely slow-paced matchup. No frags for the first minute and a half, and now all bets are off, it seems. Both players extremely aggressive, and Spart1e making really good use out of that orb. Just flies on by, steals away the heavy. COOLLERZ really low once more, and Spart1e will clean it up beautifully. Just in time for mega as well. This is an excellent opportunity for the Swede if he can avoid taking too much damage right now. He's actually going to leave up the mega. This is a risky play. Too risky, it seems. COOLLERZ so passive right now. Doesn't even want to go for the mega right there, because he knows that he doesn't have the exact timing, and that if Spart1e spawns over at LG, he could just be rushed down. So instead, he prioritizes heavy, plays a bit more of a slower, calculated game, to somewhat what we predicted before going into this, and it pays off in the end as he lands a nice rail to tie it all up.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and also Spart1e ate a lot of those lights during that process, so he felt like just prioritizing the heavy makes a lot more sense as COOLLERZ now, just biding his time once again, has tied things up. And Spart1e was looking to be a little bit more aggressive than he would like to be, but has backed down, rightfully so. As COOLLERZ did have that positional advantage waiting for him to approach towards that heavy, but both the items a little bit segregated, but at the same time, it's going to be very difficult to try and contest both. But COOLLERZ looking very good. He's top mid, got a huge stack to work with, finds exactly where Spart1e is, hits the first rail. Will he hit the second? Yes, he does. He's not going to go for the third, which is completely understandable, but he is not available, which means he can take a chance if he wants to, but he's not going to, as he's going to try and go for this mega. As he actually, Spart1e's been very aggressive with that orb, taking a huge amount of damage yet. Oh, COOLLERZ missed that one rail, but if he hits the next one, that should definitely help him gain the lead. But it's Spart1e with the lead, and now he's going to try and add a little bit more aggression onto the spawn, and that's a huge amount of damage on the spawn of COOLLERZ.
I feel like COOLLERZ has not been able to make any good use out of the abilities that his champion offers. The speed, the mobility hasn't given him the upper hand in most of these engagements. And then the peeker, I think it came out, what, once or twice and really didn't do much. I think he's been hanging on to it a bit too often, or a bit too long rather, because there have been some good opportunities, I felt, where he could use the peeker quite effectively, but hasn't really been making it happen, whereas Spart1e has been doing an excellent job at using the orb to get damage, to steal away items, to get to better positions. So Spart1e has been really smart about how he's been using his ability, whereas COOLLERZ is kind of trailing behind when it comes to that.
This is really good from COOLLERZ. A lot more aggression compared to what we saw at the very beginning of this map. And you're right, oh, that was a great rail there from COOLLERZ to be able to take the lead once again in this matchup. And I do feel like you're right, you know, in terms of his use of the peeker, we haven't seen a lot at the same time. He managed to make a great peeker play there, as you was discussing that earlier on. Finally, we saw him again trying to make great use of it. I think he's just holding it on for too long due to the fact that he's trying to get as much value out of the peeker as possible, but at the same time just holding on for it for too long, hoping that he can make better use of it. But that was a great way to use that peeker. There couldn't have been a better time there. Now COOLLERZ going to try and... Oh, he was very tempted to try and pressure the Mega first and go in for the more aggressive approach. Does manage to get it, so he's going to be very pleased about that as the heavies come out in the next couple of seconds. But he won't get it in time, but does a little bit of damage as well and just tickles him slightly with the peeker on top. Spart1e just trying to stay alive, and COOLLERZ doing much better this round. A lot more aggressive, a lot more flanks coming in, a lot more tactical. Definitely to our taste as well, hitting both of those rails as Spart1e is going to be pretty much cleaned up, and this is what we expected from COOLLERZ. From the beginning, misses the spawn rail, but that doesn't matter. The damage has already been done.
And now Spart1e is stuck in a really bad position. Can he make a move for Mega? Hang on! Out of absolutely nowhere, he just pulls off the shotgun into orb combo and gets himself a frag. We've still got a game on our hands, Lethal. This is far from over. Spart1e getting a cheeky kill out of seemingly nowhere. Picks up Mega for his trouble as well. But I don't think he's got all the weapons he needs yet. Indeed, no railgun, no rockets to work with, and COOLLERZ will punish that, holding down the angle, reading his opponent perfectly. I think that is one of the things that COOLLERZ is still outdoing Spart1e on. It's just the general map awareness. Oh, Spart1e, yeah, that's not gonna work out every time. It is always a bit of a gamble when you go in for the orb into the shotgun, because it's so disorienting when you come out of the teleport, and this time it was COOLLERZ who made the most out of that engagement.
Yeah, you took the words right in my mouth there. I was going to say Spart1e looking to try and gain all the weapons in his arsenal, but COOLLERZ's doing a great job just contesting the rockets, but it looks like Spart1e's going to be flying high, sadly. It looks like already 4 frags behind, and Spart1e's going to have to take a lot more risks, which, you know, he would actually like to, but end of the day, it's tough, really. A minute left. Got to try and find 4 frags and try and contest these items. It's going to be extremely, extremely tough as the Mega is coming up any second now. The heavy will come up for another 20 seconds. But it looks like COOLLERZ deciding to, you know, play for time rather than put any pressure on these items. And already he's done quite a lot of damage, so he could go for the trade if he wants to. That was a great play there as Spart1e's only on 35 HP. And look at this, COOLLERZ delaying that respawn for as much as he could physically possibly do. 30 seconds left to try and survive. Will he be able to? They should be able to here, as he's only 2 frags behind still, but Spart1e hasn't got, you know, the best of stacks here, looking to try and get that spawn rail. Hits the first one, and COOLLERZ just trying to stay alive for dear life here. 72 HP. Spart1e just hitting all the rails which he needs to do in order to try and catch up, but that one missed rail could cost him. Does take him down, 31 HP. Need to try and find COOLLERZ in the next 5 seconds. Picks up the mega orbs across. Does find COOLLERZ. Will he be able to take him down? Surely he will not be able to. Oh no, he misses that last rail. And that could have tied things up. But that was an incredible orb to, you know, transfer from after picking up that mega. That was really close. And COOLLERZ probably wiping off the sweat off his eyebrow considering the position he was in. Deary me. But we have to say, great play from Spart1e to almost tie things up.
That was beautiful. Indeed, that orb was so clever from Spart1e. He just knew that he needed Mega because he didn't have the stack to engage COOLLERZ off spawn, but that COOLLERZ would be all the way on the other side of the arena. So he throws out the orb as far as he can, drops down, picks up Mega, teleports, and then gets into a fight with COOLLERZ. He was 1 point of health right there. 1 point of health, Lethal. If he had landed that close quarters rail, we would have had a match on our hands, but it will be COOLLERZ who secures map 1. And that means that Spart1e will not be safe today. No matter what happens, he is not guaranteed a position out of the danger zone until what happens next week.
I cannot believe that. I'll be honest, I was surprised just due to the fact that with COOLLERZ and the amount of damage he was doing, like at the very beginning of that 4 frag run which Spart1e was trying to create, I was expecting COOLLERZ to maybe try and go for a trade, just due to the fact that the amount of health he had. It makes a bit of sense. Maybe COOLLERZ was unsure or a little bit uncertain of how much health he may have, so he didn't want to risk the trade and just prioritize just playing for time instead. But he's probably going to think back now and assume that maybe he should have just gone for the trade instead, because at least that way it would have been a safer bet, even if he was, you know, still quite weak from the last engagement. On the last bout he had, it would have been okay. But look at that though, 55% rail to the 49% from Spart1e, and against a Strog, 49% is very, very good considering the shenanigans that COOLLERZ was getting up to. But yeah, that was way too close to call. I think at one stage we were just making the assumption that after the ring out earlier on for the 10th frag for COOLLERZ, we were just like, yeah, that's probably the tipping point for Spart1e. But kept his head in the game, almost got that 4 frags back to back. Even like he was available for the majority of those 4 frags he was trying to gain in order to tie. He was like around what, 83 HP the entire time, but didn't even think twice about regaining or replenishing his health at all in the slightest. He wanted to make sure just to keep him on spawn, knowing that he has to rely on the MG the entire time. And yeah, that was very close. And like I said before, COOLLERZ probably, you know, a sigh of relief and a few sweats off the eyebrows being wiped off after that first map.
Indeed. Now, coming up next will be map 2, Corrupted Keep. We'll be loading into that one shortly. It's going to be a very different battle altogether. We talked about it at the beginning, Lethal. Pretty odd champion picks for this one, right? We've got Spart1e running the Visor versus COOLLERZ on the Anarchy, and this is one of the smallest maps in the pool. It doesn't have a railgun, so that tends to limit, you know, the usefulness, the utility that you can get out of that piercing sight when you're playing as Visor. And on the other hand, COOLLERZ is running Anarchy on a map where Super Shotgun dominates. That is a very risky pick. So these are strange champions, to say the least. They're not crazy by any means, they're not bad picks, but they are far from the established meta on this map.
Yeah, we've seen Anarchy once in a blue moon on Corrupted Keep. Like you said, it's very rare. Same with the Visor as well. Like normally I'd assume that Visor pick from COOLLERZ, like we've seen him use it a few occasions on Awoken. And, you know, this is going to be a talk about what kind of... I don't think both players are going to be able to force their style out. Like, for example, with the mobility of Anarchy, we can't really see a lot of that because COOLLERZ, on the back of his mind, is going to be thinking when and how he's going to be using that piercing sight, you know, fight for the hourglasses as well, especially outside Red Room and anywhere else. Like, you know, they're both going to be fighting for that night and day, especially depending on when the injector is going to come into play, and obviously the piercing sight. Pre-using that just to see if he can not only keep his distance, but try and discover exactly what path COOLLERZ is going to take around the map. And this is the problem you see for Spart1e with this visor pick, is the fact that Corruptor keeps a very, very small map. He has to be quite cautious on when he uses that piercing sight, because if he uses it at too close a range, and of course COOLLERZ going to be listening out for that piercing sight being used, then it's pretty much a wasteful, technique, you could say. So, he's got to be using it from quite long range, quite far distance, maybe on the LG or the heavy, but it's going to be great use in terms of being able to prep for these items, depending on what angle, shall we say, that COOLLERZ going to take for the preps of these items as well. So first map does go to COOLLERZ in a very, very close affair, as we're going to go to the second map, and once again we are going to be starting off from Spart1e's POV.
Spart1e, once again, Mega and LG side, just like we saw on the previous map. His aim is on though, but so is COOLLERZ. Those rockets are beautiful, and it will be COOLLERZ edging it out with 24 points of health. For a moment there, it seemed destined to go in Spart1e's favor, but that one rocket sent him flying up, pinned him against the wall, and allowed the Russian quite a bit of easy damage on his opponents. And COOLLERZ immediately vacates the premises, doesn't want to stick around, gives up Mega, and will take heavy. And that is, of course, the smart decision when you're playing as Anarchy, because you've got that overstack for health in your pocket. The injection can get you quite high in terms of health without even needing one of the major items. So clever play from COOLLERZ. The aim's looking fine as well. Spart1e dropping down perhaps a bit too eagerly. COOLLERZ is not going to miss those shots by any means, as both of the items are now up at the same time.
Yeah, we saw him as well in that last engagement for the LG. COOLLERZ did not have that heavy machine gun in hand, so decided to go for a closer option with the LG. Great rockets once again, doing a huge amount of work as COOLLERZ had to back away on 80 HP, but Spart1e will suicide so you can get that spawn into the red room, but the only problem is that COOLLERZ has got that height advantage, and both items coming up relatively the same time, as COOLLERZ looking to hopefully pick up the light and then go for the heavy. But the question is, where is Spart1e going to go? It looks like he's just going to find out exactly what COOLLERZ going to be going for first, but it means the items will be heavily segregated once Spart1e does go for that Mega. COOLLERZ again still has that inject if he does need to use it, but he's preemptively using it quite a lot, which, I don't mind really. It will give him a little bit of a helping hand later on, especially when he replenishes his health. But so far, no, COOLLERZ looking very, very strong. Spart1e has a slight stack lead, trying to keep Spart1e back, but he's taking way too much damage, and Spart1e could create an opening for himself here, but the only problem is COOLLERZ already backed away, but thanks to Spart1e delaying that Mega, he's able to pick up the heavy and now be able to pick up the Mega, and this is where there's a potential chance for things to spiral out of control here, Flea.
Good plays from Spart1e. Out of the negatives. Now just one frag behind, applying a lot of pressure off spawn. Worked nicely the first time, not so much the second, because COOLLERZ spawned on the nail gun, and he's been using nail gun expertly this map. Just look at the damage. COOLLERZ nail gun. What is going on? Tremendous amount of damage with just that weapon alone. But this should be going in Spart1e's favor indeed. He gets the frag, he secures the lead, rushes out for Mega. COOLLERZ, this is highly aggressive from the Russian player. He keeps pushing off spawn with very little to work with. Might work out if you're landing rockets like that, but still risky, too risky it seems. And now Spart1e slowly starting to pull away with the scoreline. COOLLERZ has to stabilize, has to put an end to this, because he's losing out on a lot of major items. He's doing good damage, but he's not getting frags or pickups.
He really isn't, and with both items heavily segregated, Spart1e can just go back and forth, and with the piercing sight as well, it's going to be even tougher. Like, spawning in that red room, there's only two ways he could have, got out of that situation. Instead, with the piercing sight, he can just eliminate that straight away, and this is the problem you see with Spart1e. If he doesn't take too much damage after each engagement, he can just keep increasing his lead at a constant pace. 4 minutes have passed, Spart1e coming up 5-2. With the Mega coming up in the next 7 seconds, and the question is, does COOLLERZ know when this Mega is coming up? I don't think he knows the exact timing, but does have a rough idea as to when it will be up, as he's going to be making that push. He does pick up that Mega. Still, he's only on 85 HP. COOLLERZ's been doing a fair amount of damage inflicting onto Spart1e here, but Spart1e does have that heavy machine gun to keep him at bay. The heavy is up, and it looks like COOLLERZ decided to prioritize the kill rather than the item, which is understandable. But even though Spart1e does pick up the heavy, he's trying to get away with his life, and COOLLERZ just trying to continue to pile on that pressure.
Looks like COOLLERZ's strategy has finally paid off, throwing himself at Spart1e several times in a row of spawn. Does get him a kill eventually. And luckily for him, it happened sooner rather than later. 2 frags down on a map like this is far from a major issue. But it does worry me, that mindset. COOLLERZ is being extremely aggressive, often with nothing more than just a nail gun, and that is such an inconsistent weapon to rely on. Oh, that is some good LG. Silver lining for Spart1e is that he did pick up the heavy just before dying, so that means that that won't be going to COOLLERZ, and light champions, they are so reliant on those armor pickups around the map, so Spart1e now has an opportunity to break COOLLERZ's control of the map.
Yeah, COOLLERZ still needs to get some of his rockets, but he does have ammo next to him if he needs to pick it up, if he so desperately requires, but it's going to prioritize the heavy and actually leave the rocket ammo, so he's going to not worry about it too much, just rely more on the LG. But does find some along the way anyway, just to see if he can keep Spart1e back, and that was great timing there from COOLLERZ. Does tie things up 5 or 4 minutes left, and let's be honest, fully, I think we definitely expected both these guys to go absolutely at it, just time things up at a constant pace. He still has that inject, but it's going to be picking up the health bubbles first before he uses it, which makes perfect sense. But once again, this is a good thing about the Anarchy, just be able to quickly replenish his health once again. He's trying to back away from Spart1e, but he's in a difficult... Oh, he's trying to go for that mega. Sadly, doesn't come out on top in that last engagement, and Spart1e regains the lead.
As is very often the case on Corrupted Keep, neither player gets clean control or dominance of the map going. Even if one of these guys secures both of the major items in a row, they almost always end up taking a fair bit of damage doing so, and can never get comfortable. They can never just have a secure grip of the map that allows them to build momentum. The Mega is up. It will be going in Spart1e's favor, but that is some tremendous tribal damage. COOLLERZ, can he capitalize off of this? I like that he's approaching this from a much more reserved attitude already. He's not just pushing in, because we've seen what those Spart1e rockets can do through those choke points. COOLLERZ has dropped a few frags from being out of position and eating big rockets to the face. He's playing it a bit more cautiously now. And he gets the frag just before Mega spawns as well. That is huge. That is huge, because now COOLLERZ has 10 seconds between the items. It's got all the weapons to work with. And he knows that Spart1e is only at base stack. This is a perfect opportunity for the Russian to now get onto the heavy and maybe finally get some consistent control going.
Yeah, COOLLERZ tracking with the LG. He's been nothing short of phenomenal. He's going to be pushing on up. He hasn't got the positional advantage, but still doesn't change the fact that he does manage to pick up that Mega. And remember, guys, if COOLLERZ wins this map, there's a very, very good chance that he will be able to secure his spot in the Quake Pro League. 2 minutes left. Both players are still tying up. And I must say, the approach in this matchup is a lot more different than we expected, because we thought COOLLERZ would be a lot more cautious with the Anarchy, considering the piercing sight. But it looks like he's not really that bothered about it. It's just trying to catch it by surprise on a number of occasions. And Spart1e will pick up this Mega. And look at the stack difference here, Flea. I'm a little bit worried for COOLLERZ. He's trying to back down. He realizes that he's probably in a very bad situation, but can get out of a hole if he wants to. But again, he has to give up the heavy potentially. He knows that Spart1e's just maybe going for the light first, then going for the heavy, but Spart1e's realized that it's just too much of a risk. Taking a huge amount of damage trying to bag this heavy, and now he realizes that, yep, it's secure, it's fine, he should be okay. And COOLLERZ, oh, he's going to be giving up the Mega as well. I feel like he's just delaying the inevitable if he doesn't pick up one of these items, and he does get taken down. Spart1e now with that 1 frag lead, and there's only a minute left to go as COOLLERZ just come out swinging with the rockets and knows that time is of the essence. Has 50 seconds on the map that to keep. Is definitely doable, especially with the Anarchy.
That was so unnecessary on COOLLERZ's end, and now he's got only 40 seconds to get himself a frag. He does have a slight stack advantage, but he's still lacking the lightning gun, doesn't have heavy machine gun. Those are things that Spart1e does have working in his favor. It costs Cooler at least a few seconds to secure those things. The chase has to be on now. 20 seconds left to go. Knows exactly where Spart1e is. There we go, Cooler catches him. Spart1e rocket jump straight back up. He's down to 25 points of health. Cooler, the chase. Can he find him? Spart1e juke. I don't think he can get out. Cooler should be able to tie it up, and indeed with 5 seconds left to go, it is 7-7. Spart1e, he was eyeing heavy for a second right there, but makes the wise decision not to pursue. Now he has to stabilize. He's got to be so careful. He's outgunned, he's outstacked, he's outsped. He can't give this one up to Cooler.
I'm a bit worried for Spart1e now. Cooler has got a huge stack and injectors up any second now. This could be Cooler's map to secure his spot. Of course, not a guarantee, but we will confirm after the series. But so far, Cooler's looking very, very good. He does catch him. Great LG, but he doesn't want to take the risk. Got the Mega. He does have the inject as well still to use. And it's just possibly a matter of time. Does take him down. Cooler cleans up Spart1e by another close affair on Corrupt to keep him. Yeah, my goodness. Look at the items as well. It was so similar. Both players picked up 20 items, and the only difference in terms of lights is Cooler picked up 1 extra light, but I must say that was once again too close to call. But I do feel like now that Cooler has secured his spot, but you know, we will double check that just to make sure. But yeah, but it's looking very good for Cooler so far.
I mean, if Cooler gets 3-0, he's in the clear.
Yeah.
2-1, not necessarily so. I think if he gets 2-1 and then loses all of his matches in the next week, it's still going to go to Spart1e. Spart1e will escape the relegation game. So everything comes down to this for Spart1e. If he loses this next map, he knows that he is guaranteed to face off against either Hron or Pesita in a match for survival in the Quake Pro League. So this is an extremely important series for both of these players, and it's all going to be decided on Ruins.
And both these players enjoy Ruins, so what better way to, you know, end things here than going to Ruins as the final map. You can see how close it was. Not only has both players, you know, picked up the exact amount of major items and almost the exact same lights, but look at the damage as well, just ridiculous. You know, 69 more damage in comparison to each other. And the LG damage as well, looking at 43% LG against an Anarchy. That's very, very strong, as we didn't really talk too much about the LG from Spart1e, more on Cooler's side, because, you know, every single time we had that engagement, we were seeing it from Cooler's perspective. But we're just having a little look at the leaderboard in terms of the standings and just trying to compare to how this could work out. And like Flea rightly said, if Cooler does win this 3-0, then it's pretty much, you know, a done deal that he will be able to secure his spot. But if Spart1e wins this third map, it would mean that he'll be safe for the time being, but also at the same time, it would mean that Cooler has to try and take at least 1 map off his next opponent in the final week, next week in week 13, I believe, against Wenger. So, you know, even taking a map off against Wenger is a tall order as it is. So I kind of feel like Cooler wants to try and end it now, if anything.
Indeed. Spart1e, this is a tough one, I think. Spart1e had been looking good, like you mentioned earlier, in the past few weeks, but this is going to be a tough one to swallow if indeed he does have to play a relegation match, which seems to be incredibly likely. Now, Ruins of Sarnat will be our final map. Going to load into that in just a second, and this will be BJ versus Eisenlethal. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a tough one. We've seen BJ once again, like once in a blue moon on the odd occasion. Normally you'd see a BJ pick on Corrupt to keep. You know, that's normally one of the go-to maps for BJ. But we've seen him a couple of times from different players on Ruins as well, which is not something we see every day. But again, BJ's quite a champion, which is not unique, but of course, you know, in terms of variable, in terms of uses with the dual wield and everything else, you can use him on any map pretty much. It's not something you can use, like, you know, in terms of one map in particular. Like Corrupt to keep, like I said, he is normally the go-to because of the amount of close range combat battles you have to put yourself in, which is understandable as to why BJ can be so effective on Corrupt to keep. But to see it on Ruins, I don't really see it as a bad thing, but it's not like a big thing anyway. And the only thing with the Eisen pick is, of course, he gets that early preparation for the heavy, depending on his turret placement. So here we go. Third map. Currently, Cooller up 2-0 in the series. But if Cooller wins this third and final map, then it's safe to say he's pretty much guaranteed his spot in the Quake Pro League, and Spart1e will most probably have to play in the relegation. But if Spart1e wins this map, it means that we'll have to go to the final week next week where Cooller will have to try and take at least one map off Wenger in the final week next week. But let's see what happens so far. So he's starting on Spart1e's POV once again, dropping down to see if he can find Cooller, but he didn't actually realise that Cooller was down there, had his back turned, assuming that maybe he's coming from Mega or somewhere else. But this is a great start for Cooller if he does clean things up, but misses a couple of those rails, and Cooller will get that first frag on the board.
Spart1e once again relying on the close combat rails. Didn't quite pay out or pay off Putter in that situation. And COOLLERZ immediately gets a quick frag. COOLLERZ, I think he's feeling the aggression, Lethal. I think it worked out quite nicely for him in the previous map. He wants to continue the same trend now for the final series on Ruins. Rails being exchanged, Spart1e down to 25 points of health, even with the heavy. He's in a bad spot. Doesn't even need heavy. I think that was a really clever play by Spart1e. Heavy was up, and I think COOLLERZ was expecting him to just go for the item, but instead Spart1e just absolutely pushed him up the stairs. Unexpected rocket to the face that will seal the deal, make it another. Can he find the last one? Switches to LG indeed. That's all it takes to get that 1 point ahead.
Yeah, you know, very, very understandable with what Spart1e was trying to do. He knew that if he missed that one rail, the animation of switching to the LG is just going to not help him at all. And decided to be safe rather than sorry. But both players will re-engage once again off up the heavy jump pad, which means that COOLLERZ does tie things up in the opening minutes of this game as Spart1e trapped in the LG room, having to deal with Timmy in the LG area as well. And COOLLERZ does have another turret in his back pocket, so looking to drop down towards the heavy. And Spart1e once again just a little bit unaware, 2 for 2 in terms of rails from COOLLERZ to take down Spart1e and also regain the lead.
Spart1e is just going bananas with the railgun. I don't know what's possessing this man right now, but he just grabs rail and he pushes in like it's no one business, even going for the dual railgun. Now he will add LG to his arsenal right there. Won't matter much in the end. This is tense for Spart1e. Oh, he's just eating those rockets. Lethal, has he given up already? He just stood there and took it, the final bit of damage. Again, this is so careless, Spart1e. Pushing in. Very little regard for his own safety or for his opponent's position.
Yeah, I do agree to a certain extent, but the problem is COOLLERZ's rockets have just been remarkable. Absolutely. Picks up the Mega as COOLLERZ now up 8-2, and this is where things are going to get very tough. But we'd have to worry about speed or mobility or anything like that on this map, which, let's be real, Spart1e's going to be pretty happy about. But COOLLERZ now just needs to continue to pile on the pressure, try and recover if he can. If he picks up that light, it's going to definitely do wonders for him, as he probably makes the assumption that Spart1e is just getting ready to contest that Mega, which he does, as COOLLERZ now is going to make early preparation for the heavy with that turret. The question is Spart1e going to try and contest it? He will, does hit the first rail. He is railable, but oh, that 69 damage from that rocket is not going to help Spart1e at all, as COOLLERZ just going to gain a little bit more momentum, push himself towards Spart1e, but Spart1e does get away, but he can't really waste too much time. Yes, sure, it's Ruins. Yes, sure, he's got plenty of time on the clock, but yeah, COOLLERZ just reading him like a book at this point.
Indeed, and I think that Spart1e has just come to terms with this being over. Even if he would have won this map, there was still a chance that they could end up being tied in points, but at that point it moves on down to who has the most wins, and that would have been COOLLERZ regardless. So it is a settled deal by now. It will be Spart1e and Garpy who will be playing the relegation games over on the European side of things. And COOLLERZ will once again, by the skin of his teeth, avoid having to fight for his life in the Quake Pro League, and he will be safe and secure.
5-minute warning.
Yeah, it's currently 11-2, only just at the halfway stage, and this is very anticlimactic, I think we have to say. We expect it to be a lot closer compared to what we saw in the previous matchups, but yeah, it's been completely different. Absolutely, as COOLLERZ now just placing that turret underneath because he knows that Spart1e is going to be pressuring the heavy as well as regaining the weapons in his arsenal. But yeah, it's just definitely not what we expected considering what we saw in those first two maps. But the rockets from COOLLERZ have just been nothing short of spectacular.
Indeed, COOLLERZ looking in top shape. We discussed this before the stream started, or rather at the beginning as well. COOLLERZ is a player who has been practicing quite a bit more in the build-up to the finals, and it's clearly showing now. Although, let's be real for a second, Spart1e is no longer putting up much of a fight. He knows what awaits him, either Chron or Pazita. And they are tough players to handle. Lethal, Chron, representing Maestro, looking to make his way back into the Quake Pro League. And then Pazita, who actually came in first in the European Challengers this time around. These are very solid competitors, so Spart1e, he knows that he's in trouble.
Yeah, he does. It's a bit of a shame, really, for Spart1e's. You know, when it got to the 6-7 frag mark, everything COOLLERZ was doing was just, yeah, again, like I said before, nothing you could complain about, really. Just putting so much pressure, like great rocket control, good projectile usage. His LG as well, and the rail spawns it's just been amazing. 3 minutes left, it's just not going to happen. 12 frags behind. Spart1e did put up an amazing fight in those first two maps, but this third map, it's just been, you know, completely different. COOLLERZ knows how much it means to him to win this 3-0, and we said it even before the series began. Like, in previous stages is where COOLLERZ has actually had to try and secure his spot. He actually had to win, you know, 2 or 3 matches in a row, 3-0, and he'd done that against some of the toughest opponents in the EU region, and he's done it again. But don't get me wrong, by a narrow margin. Like that first map on Deep Embrace, where literally Spart1e making an incredible comeback, sadly didn't work in his favor, and you know, the Corrupted Keep going into sudden death as well. But yeah, this has been a whitewash for COOLLERZ. COOLLERZ definitely showing us why he should be staying in the Pro League and why he's going to continue staying in the Pro League, as well as, you know, for anyone who does play against Spart1e in the relegation spot to try and secure a spot in the Quake Pro League, you know, for Pazita or Horon, I'd be interested to see how they do against them. Like, you know, Horon's a, you know, very, very good player, well established. We know how strong he was in the past. Depends how much he's been practicing. And Pazita, it's nice to see him finally have an opportunity. We see him compete in almost every single Challenger League final, or, you know, he could qualify for a spot in Challenger League, but he never had a real chance to try and secure his own spot in the Quake Pro League. So seeing how the Russian can do in a few weeks' time, because Pazita is, like, you know, a very good player, but just not had the opportunity to try and bag one of these spots. And do you know what? He could definitely do it. So could see a fresh face. We'll have to wait and see.
Interesting outcome for today's series. I don't think we actually discussed it before the matches started, but last time these two played, Spart1e was actually the one to win. 2-1, secured it with a 1 map advantage over his opponent. And those maps that they played back then were completely different from the ones that we saw today. So the players really not interested in repeating the same situation once more. Going for an entirely different set of maps, and this time around it definitely paid off in favor of the COOLLERZ, as he will be taking this one clean 3-0. So congratulations, COOLLERZ. This is a done deal. I believe the predictions for Chad have already been called even. Well-deserved victory for COOLLERZ. He is on fire.
He really is. It's brilliant how it will give some players some false hope, knowing that they might be able to push him into relegation zone. And COOLLERZ just like, nah, I'm alright. I'm gonna stay in the Prodi for a little bit longer if that's okay with you. But with the rails and the rockets he was hitting all map long, like, yeah, you can see how much it means to COOLLERZ just to make sure he secures his spot to the best of his ability. And he has done. Congratulations, COOLLERZ. Flea rightly said that whoever Freo's in this matchup will secure their spot. COOLLERZ looks like he will do. We will confirm it just to make sure that everything's all kosher and what was said is correct, and we haven't been, incorrect by any means. But yeah, we're pretty certain of it anyway. And even if Spart1e did win that final map, it would mean that he would have to hope that COOLLERZ doesn't win a map against Wenger, which could have definitely been possible.
But it isn't,
no.
And it's done. Garpy and Spart1e will be playing the relegation games over in the European side of the leaderboard. The Americas still remain to be seen, given the fact that Dramis still has to play a few of those games. He has to make up a few series that had to be postponed. But for Europe, we know the results. Congratulations, COOLLERZ. Well-deserved 3-0 win today.
Yeah, he's going to be very happy about that. I don't think we expected anything else, because in his performance, look at that, 2,112 damage more, 47% rail, and the rocket damage, well, let's be honest, Philippe, it speaks for itself, 2,900 damage with the rockets. Just having a bit of a giggle here and there. Spart1e, we kind of felt like, yeah, he did give up towards that 6th, 7th frag mark. He was constantly making the same rotation on spawn for the rail each and every time, and by that point, what could you do with it? Because COOLLERZ was having the high ground, so if he went up to the staircase towards Mega or went for the rail, he was done for pretty much. He was going to get outgunned or outslayed, no matter how you saw it. But great stuff from COOLLERZ once again. 3-0 is exactly what he wanted, and that's exactly what he got.
But the day has only just begun, Lethal. This is only the first series of many more top players who are going to spring into action today. I think we're going to jump into a quick break for the time being, but don't go anywhere, because the Quake Pro League is going to be right back with Killson versus CNZ.